And you mentioned there that Ma'mun ordered that the golden dissertation be written in gold. And this is one of the things which, when you read about the lives of the Imams, especially Imam al-Rida and Imam al-Jawad, you get a character like Ma'mun who, on the surface of things, obviously we know about his role in the assassination of Imam al-Rida, but that aside, he comes across as somebody who's actually very pro-Ahlul Bayt, more so than the other caliphs. I mean, other caliphs may have, given lip service to some of the Imams and given some sort of credit. But Ma'mun actually does a lot, like you said, these sort of recognitions of the Imams, which maybe leave people in confusion as to actually his real status and his real enmity for the Ahlul Bayt. I mean, would you say that this is just, he was more cunning, or he just managed to hide his hypocrisy?
There is no doubt Al-Ma'mun Al-Abbasi, in terms of political ability, is a person who's got political finesse. He has daha and ilm, and that cannot be denied. His hilm is revered in terms of the decisions that he's made, how he made sure he got into power, how he defeated Al-Amin, how he consolidated power in Baghdad. These aren't, things which a person can just gloss over simply because they're looking through a theological lens. At the end of the day, if you're going to look at him purely as a political personality, then the person establishes, 20 years of power. It's not something easy for any individual to stay in power that long, especially with the amount of enemies you have. And especially when you look after he died, how maybe, his younger brother or the later sons make stupid decisions with the Turks and allow the Turks really to take over the caliphate. So Al-Ma'mun Al-Abbasi is politically cunning, and he knows when to pull the string and when to let go of it, and that's a skill. But of course, whether there's a conscience which is alive and presence of God which is alive is a different decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Returning back to the discussion, we were obviously talking about part of the cunning of Ma'mun, which is marrying his daughter.
Just a question on Iraq as well.
Oh, sorry, yeah, the other brother had a question, which was Iraq always known as Iraq? By
yes,
name?
I think that was the question about Al-Iraq being known as Al-Iraq. Yeah. And there's earlier sermons from the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen where there is a reference to the people of Iraq. Maybe sometimes not in the most positive way, but the word Iraq is definitely mentioned within those sermons.
Okay, so it's not a new term at all.
No.
Again, returning back to the issue of Ma'mun, and as we were discussing just then, his quite cunning approach to the Ahlul Bayt. And you mentioned his marriage of Fadl to Imam al-Jawad at a very young age. How did Fadl herself deal with the Imam? What was her akhlaq like? Was she obedient? Was she friendly? Was she accepting towards the Imam? Or was it a different story?
No, I think Fadl al-Fadl was one of the most difficult wives any Imams could face. She was disobedient towards the Imam, quite loud, constantly writing to her father to try and somehow get her out of the life with the Imam. And one narration even indicates the narration which many people ask the question about, Harz al-Jawad. Sometimes people wear a ring with a star on it and they say there's the Harz of Imam al-Jawad. People say, where does this come from? That knowledge is flourishing, where there's great centers of learning in Medina or in Kufa. Learning, he was known to be illiterate as well. He would find happiness when he finds out his tutors had passed away. He used to hate Arabs as well. He came from a Turkish origin and actually loved Turks more because his mother was Marida. Marida was of Turkish origin. And then Mu'tasim al-Abbasi notices Fadl is complaining, notices also the reputation of Imam al-Jawad alayhi salam is also growing, and later on he wants to put an end to it. So you find that when he wants to put an end to it, he cleverly tries to find ways of oppressing the Imam. There are even narratives of trying to throw slave girls into the Imam's house.
Break. I'd like to again remind viewers that this is a live show, and that the telephone number is
وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر.
الله يا الله
صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد الله.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to the 20th hour on Ahli Bayt TV, Sky Channel 836. I'd like to remind viewers as well, if you don't have Sky or if your relatives and friends don't have Sky, they can watch on www.ahlibayt.tv, and inshallah there'll be a live stream for everybody to watch at home. Again, I'd also like to remind viewers that this is a live show, and so we'd welcome your calls and your questions. The number is 0208 900 1741, and inshallah that number should be across the bottom of your screen for the various points in the show remaining. Again, I'd like to remind viewers of the topic of tonight's show, which is the life of and the biography of Imam Jawad alayhi salam, who is our 9th Imam. Condolences to all the mu'mineen and mu'minat again, once more on this occasion, which is the Shahadat, the anniversary of the martyrdom of Imam Jawad at the hands of the Abbasid Caliphate. And so unfortunately, on this very sad occasion, we'd like to send our condolences, but at the same time, also take strength from the fact that we can use this opportunity to learn about the Imam and to get a real understanding of his life and the circumstances in which he lived, and also how we can use his example in our lives today, living in the West in the 21st century. And again, as with every week, we are joined very honoured by the presence of Sayyid AMMAR Nakshawani, Sayyid AMMAR Nakshawani, who obviously will be answering our questions and yours as well. So, Sayyid, and again, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Before the break, we were obviously discussing the various aspects of of Imam Jawad's life, alayhi salam, and a good period of this life was spent living under the caliphate of Ma'mun al-Abbasi. Obviously, Imam Jawad alayhi salam doesn't only live under his caliphate though. Ma'mun dies, and then his younger brother Mu'tasim takes over and becomes the caliph. So if you could just, if you don't mind, tell us the circumstances of the passing of Ma'mun and how Mu'tasim comes to gain power.
It's not so much a case of Al-Mu'tasim gaining power, it's a case of Mu'tasim inheriting power, as in seen as the younger brother of Amin and Ma'mun. Ma'mun's death really, the narratives talk of him sitting by a stream where he loves the surrounding of that particular stream, and he decides to have some dates while sitting by the stream, and he thinks, the whole world's in his hands and nothing really can stop him, and he's in a position of comfort. But the irony of this world is that you could be the most powerful person on this earth, but when death comes to you, you can't really do anything, as in the only certainty in life is death. And while he's drinking some water and eating these dates, he suddenly realizes that, what he's just taken in is is going to cause the end of his life. And it's not ironic that when you try and kill God's servants on earth, it's going to come back to hurt you as well. So he passes away, having really been in power for 20 years or so, and Al-Mu'tasim enters. And as we said, Al-Mu'tasim is different from Al-Ma'mun. Al-Ma'mun is fond of knowledge and learning and translating and working on different aspects of literature and the development of the state, whereas Al-Mu'tasim comes in and really it's a case of, I don't want anyone to get in my way, and if there are people out there who differ with my opinion, then we're going to be ruthless with them.
And just so to clarify, is he poisoned, Ma'mun?
No.
But it's just a feeling that he has that this is, the end of his life. So I suppose this leads us on to the question of cooperating with a government who may have a different ideology to us. Obviously, as we know, any authority besides the Imams at that time is illegitimate authority which has usurped the rights of the Imams. And yet many people may ask the question of why doesn't Imam Jawad, for example, rise up and fight Mu'tasim? Why doesn't he, go to war and declare war and overthrow? So, what is this concept of, maybe from the outside cooperating with such a government?
Well, on the first level, we find that that within the Holy Quran and even the history of the religion of Islam, there may be prophets of God, or indeed Imams, who find that cooperation with a government which differs from their ideology, if it's going to look after the interests of their followers, and there's not going to be a compromise in terms of their beliefs, then there is no problem with it. As we find Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam working with a government within the Holy Quran, which is a government which doesn't even believe in God. When the Quran says, قَالَ الْمَلِكُ ائْتُونِ بِهِ, the king says, bring him to me, we find that, Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam is cooperating with a government which completely differs with him. But he says قال اجعلني على خزائن الأرض, that, you know, make me the treasurer of the earth, meaning that make me the treasurer of this particular government. So Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam finds that it's in the best interest of his followers. Likewise, the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi seeks help from a government which is Christian in Abyssinia. That's the second example. You find even Imam Musa ibn Ja'far alayhi salam, the grandfather of Imam Jawad, tells Ali bin Yaqtin to continue working as the Prime Minister of Harun al-Rashid if it's going to serve the interests of his followers in one way or the other. So it's not just a case where a person can just come forward and say, if I differ with the Caliph, I'm just going to stand up and fight him. No. If I feel that the conditions are right, then I may stand up. Or I may not stand up, but I am building a force which is going to be helpful for us in the future. We have at the time people like the Boyids and the Hamdanis, for example, possibly on the rise in terms of their particular areas within the Islamic State, and may later form governments which are, you know, helpful towards the Shia cause. So Imam Jawad found it that in his wisdom that the situation at the time did not call for an uprising.
So, and you mentioned that there's imams who have told some of their followers that they can take positions within certain governments in the past, and I believe as well Imam Jawad was one who I think is one of his followers, is it Hassan ibn Sahal, was made the governor of Baghdad, of Iraq, sorry.
Yep.
And so is there anything wrong with perhaps one of the Shia of the imams of the time, of their time, you know, the followers of the Ahlul Bayt, from taking these positions? Because we obviously have other narrations which say anyone who helps, somebody who helps a tyrant will be in the hellfire on the Day of Judgment, will be raised with that tyrant.
Yeah.
So how do we find this balance? Especially in our lives today, we may have positions given to us or opportunities put towards us which put us in a position of power. How do we get that balance of obviously keeping away from positions, but also, as you said,
well, obviously you don't want to be in a position where you're in, you know, in a particular position where you're ordering the deaths of innocent human beings.
Yeah.
When the Imams allowed, for example, Hassan ibn Sahl to be governor of Baghdad, it's because he knows being governor of Baghdad in those days will allow, for example, the followers of Ahlul Bayt to practice their religion without any fear whatsoever, to be given healthy posts in and around the state. Likewise, Ali bin Yaqtin is not going to be in a position with Harun al-Rashid where he orders the execution of people. No, he's going to be in charge, for example, of the accounts of the state. He's going to be in charge, for example, of looking after pilgrims when they go towards Mecca and so on. It's a position where you know you're going to be ordering the killing of innocent human beings, where no imam would sanction that position. But if it's a position where you feel you can look after their interests without compromising the principles set in the religion, then the imams will advise for you to take that position.
okay, and if you can influence and in any way
Yes.
improve the lives of the followers of the Ahlul
Definitely.
Bayt, then obviously it's sanctioned. I believe we have another caller. Assalamu alaikum.
I need some clarification, if possible, from Brother Ammar. To my understanding, or according to the books, they say that, you know, Imam Raza alayhi salam only had